Alright, camera starting without us again. I definitely thought I was getting ready to go to the park, and then I got home and my dad was like walking around like a crazy person trying to find his shoes so he could go next door. And it's an ordeal. I asked if he checked in his usual spots for leaving them, which was next to his chair or under the bed or, places like that. He said he already looked at all those places. And I had just come in from the garage. Just got done walking my little heathens. And I parked up by the garage because I was going to go back out and go to the park so I could do the little video. And when I got home, he was like walking around all confused and everything. It's like, okay. So I think I went back to my bathroom and then I came back out. And since I figured out he was going to go next door to my grandma's house, I was like, well, then shit, I'll do the video here. It feels way better inside because it's one of those, I think it's like 83, but it feels like 98, according to my weather app. And it's hot. So since we just got back from our walk, I figured I'll just do it in my room, right? So I went to move the car back to where I normally park it, and he's walking around barefoot at this point outside. I thought he was going to go over to my grandma's without shoes on, which, I mean, I do that all the time. I count it as grounding and getting close to earth and all that fun stuff. So, doesn't bother me. I think he's done it before, but he was just walking around outside confused. And he was walking over in the direction of the truck like he was going to see if he left his shoes in the truck. It's like, okay, that's different. So, I went to go out the garage door from the inside of the house, and he locked it. It's like, cool. This is different. And I went over to where he normally sits at the chair and moved a couple bags that he has over there, and one of his shoes was there. The other one was on the other side of the end table. So I'm not entirely sure how he did that one. But yeah. So I put them where he could find them, told him where they were at, but when I went and opened the garage door again, he was looking in the freezer. It's like, are you looking for your shoes in the freezer, or did you forget what you were looking for? So I don't know what's going on there, but they're a little erratic and all over the place, so yeah. Of course, I know some of the videos that I've done sound very not in favor of him. I'm still not really in favor of him, but at the same time, it's just kind of, I don't know, kind of weird. Anyway, there was a malfunction yesterday because apparently he's not happy his truck is being used when he's not the one able to use it. It's like, well, he can't use it. And that's not the point. So, and it was kind of funny because before, when he first got the truck, it was like he was trying to push people to want to use it all the time. And then now that it's more of an option since it's available and he can't go anywhere, he's pissed off when it's getting used. So it's like he wanted it to be when it was his exclusively and felt like his, he wanted you to want to use it. But then as soon as it became a thing where it wasn't going to get used otherwise, it became a problem that anybody else would want to use it. So, in random, because I've seen them all, I have caught 111, 222, 333, and 444 on this video now. So, I'm going right along with my synchronicities and everything, so I don't know, it's just a weird situation. Yesterday, he had his shoes and was looking like he was going to go somewhere, and I said, "Where are you going?" And he said, "Nowhere." So I took the truck and went to Goodwill because I had some stuff to take back. And he said he wasn't going anywhere. So, yeah, apparently that was a problem. But he didn't say anything, and he said he wasn't going anywhere, he just wanted to get dressed. He's not above putting his shoes on and just wandering around the house. That's not something that's out of the ordinary, which is part of why there are different places he leaves his shoes. Like, I personally don't like to have my shoes on when I'm in the house. So I usually leave them behind the couch by the back door, because those are the ones I put on easy when I'm going outside with the dogs. Or there's this little end table next to a couch, and I have a couple pairs there. It's like, those are the two places that I leave my shoes, because they're easier to find that way. And if one of them disappears, chances are it got shoved under the corner of the couch and is easy to find. That's happened a few times. Usually if Gidget's wanting to play and she gets all carried away, she'll occasionally knock them under there on the laminate flooring or on the carpet. Gracie used to shove the stuff under the couch to get it out of her way when she was playing. So, but it was still easy to find, right? Anyway, that was just the ordeal for a little bit ago. Okay, so also the other day I talked about how I was kind of hesitant on the completely cutting ties with the respite care job, even though I know I'm not going to do any work for them that's not with Gracie, and Gracie is out of state, so it's no longer an option, right? There's still that point of, it was still something that I had, and while I was kind of going back and forth with whether I wanted a last paycheck for like the training that they kept hounding me to do until I solidified that yes, I was leaving, then they didn't want me to do it. But when I was like thinking about all that, like then I talked about like the messages that suddenly appeared as one message on my desk, right, on the hutch of my desk. So I have the poster that says "Right," and then next to it says "The universe provides," and then the next one is "Trust the process." So, when I looked at it all together, it was like, right, the universe provides, trust the process. Clear message. So it's like, yep, that job has to go. It's not something I'm going to do anything with anyway. If I were to try to connect with somebody else in the community to have another role and just be able to keep that income, it would be part of that, diminishing myself, because I know that's not what I want to do. That's not where my heart's at. That's not what I want to be doing with my life. I know I'm supposed to be doing something else that is largely wrapped up in this whole YouTube thing, but also writing is kind of the bigger thing, even though the YouTube thing has been a necessary means of essentially unfurling all the things that I thought were true about myself, right? Or walking through the things that I needed to talk through somehow to understand different levels of them, or different layers to them. So it's been an essential part of the process. But my videos, I know they're long-winded, and I tend to be all over the place. Now, if you watch them from all the way through, I think you can tell that it makes sense how, okay, you might not understand how this point led to this point over here, but if you follow my thought process as I'm talking through it, you can kind of see how I'm kind of wandering. And I think that's been one of the things that's like hugely important for me to understand about myself, is because there's so much information that I'm taking in that I'm trying to make sense of in light of other information that I've taken in, and trying to make it make sense. So, like, at some level, I think I don't even want to call it an end goal, because I don't know that that's what it is. I think it's just part of what I'm supposed to be doing has to do with teaching some of these things that I figured out through the complicated unfurling of this leads to this, leads to this, to this, to this, and this is why I didn't make sense of anything any sooner than I did. Because I am gaining clarity for myself on this whole journey. It's just very slow means of getting to from point A to point B or whatever. And yeah, it's just complicated. Anyway, going back to the writing thing, because that's part of where I wandered off. Wandering back, so regarding the posters in my office, write, the universe provides, trust the process. Yesterday, I started looking at, I was looking at my email. Now, there's so much junk that goes to my email at this point that like for on here, for my YouTube channel, if anybody should want to reach me for some reason, I have a different email address that's connected, right? And it was one that I started because it's kind of like the bigger goal of my multiple purposes coming together, if that makes sense. And I wrote about it. This is a roundabout way of getting back to where I'm going, and whatever, complicating it unnecessarily. It's what I do. But, I mean, it's not really unnecessarily, because it's necessary for me to see how I did it and why I did it and wandered off to something else. Anyway, the email that I had come up with was because I had this web page that I will have back, so I'm not going to talk too much about that right here. I have the domain name registered, but I wasn't able to pay for the Bluehost site or whatever to be able to add content to it, so it's kind of like, I don't know what it is. Anyway, it's there. I wrote about it when I started my first attempt at starting the website. I had my friend, my computer buddy Jeff, help me get some stuff put together for it, and then it ended up not working out, and I was like too afraid to do anything with it. So I didn't, and ended up having him scrap it for me. And then a couple years later, I decided to try again, right? So I remembered what he had said that I needed to do to start on it. But then when I was asking him questions, he kind of fell off, because the last time I hadn't gone anywhere with it, and he probably saw it as a waste of time. So he's just like, yeah, and he has his own life, even though I only come around once in a great while when I have a computer question or whatever. Or my parents have gotten scammed and are getting ready to bring their computer in. Those are usually the times we reconnect. So the second time I went to try the webpage thing, it was all me. Like, I asked him a couple questions, and he did respond at one point, but there were multiple questions that he didn't. He was just like, yeah, whatever. I don't know if he actually saw them, to be honest, because it wasn't something I pushed. It's like one and done. So I send it, and then I don't immediately respond to messages sometimes, and if I wander off from them, I'm inclined to forget. I get how that works, right? So I'm bad about it myself. I can accept that it's something that probably happens with other people too. So anyway, website, yeah. But that came up from this thing that I had written on Vocal Media when I had started with them in 2021. And that was this whole weird thing because I was really uncomfortable about putting content anywhere. You know, and I've talked about, like, there's this one poem that I wrote that I absolutely loved, and I think it was 2021-ish, which was Ego's Masquerade. And I had a really hard time posting that one on their website. And then eventually, because it was like, if I put it out there, then it exists for other people to find. And if other people find it, what if somebody wants to steal it, kind of a thing. Because that's something that I have struggled with a lot in my lifetime. And I think there's a lot of reason for that. Going back to the drumline thing where, I was, okay, that picture right there, that's me and Tyler. We're the drumline captains. And so we had that connection that nobody else had, right? That part of it. So like the whole group was a big part of the winning process, but we still had that connection together that nobody else had because we had actually been the leaders of this thing. But then when we actually won the thing, I think that one was actually state championship. That little thing there is my sort of memorial for important people and animals in my life that have died. So my dad's dad was those two way over there. There's a couple dogs, including Doogie. That was my little rat terrier that dog was awesome. My dad's mom right there. This dude, Chip, that was my first dog, and that dog was everything. And above that, my great-grandparents and, me and my brother, we used to spend all sorts of time out there. More dogs, and then, of course, Tyler. Obviously, my mom's dad did not make it, and I'm not going to add him. And there are others that will not be added when something happens. These are ones that have been important on this process and me navigating through things. And then the others are basically means of being energy leaks and where I lost myself because I was trying to help them with things that they didn't want help with, basically. Right, the drumline thing, that came up because, when we won the WGI Championship 2002, the World Championship thing, I was trying to swallow my pride to thank my mother for her role in the thing, right? And the first words out of her mouth were, "I deserve this as much as you do." Then it was like, well, fuck, it's not even mine then, is it? It's like I wasn't even there at all, right? So it's like I had this role in it that should technically have held some kind of importance. Not that I was any better or any worse than anybody else, although even that, it's like I've spent a long time in my life. That was one of the big things that, I knew I was supposed to have some sort of leadership role, but I didn't know what that was supposed to look like. That was the first thing that really I was able to step into that leadership role. And at the time, I thought I was like subpar on this musicianship piece, but yet I was able to be a leader. So it's like, I talked about Matt being he was essentially the second in command. He was the one that ended up being section leader the year after I graduated. But, when it came to music skills and, harder pieces, I always diverted to him because I didn't trust myself, right? So, I thought I wasn't a good musician, so I handed that off to him. Which, he's the one that after Tyler died and we all got together, kind of have a little celebration of life of sorts, and just telling stories we remembered about him and all that stuff. Matt, he said something that really stuck with me, and what he said was, it's not that any of us were like really stellar musicians. It's we all played our parts and played our parts well, and we played them well together. And it's like, see, I thought everybody else was like awesome, and I just sucked. But I could handle this leadership thing for some reason. So, yeah. But then, like, when he said that, it was like, so basically, I just had a really shitty viewpoint of this thing, and, you know, how much better could the whole experience have been if I had had this different idea, I mean, for the good or the bad. You know, there's multiple ways that could have played out, had that piece of information come to me any earlier. But anyway, my mom, and the saying the thing, that she deserved it as much as I did, you know, it immediately just, like, took the whole thing away from me, right? So then, anytime I've tried to do anything else in my life, be it writing or whatever else, I automatically step into that self-sabotage piece because of stuff like that. So when I started writing on Vocal Media, I knew, I've always known writing is a big part of what I'm supposed to be doing. It's not exclusively what I'm doing, obviously. Especially since I'm struggling with the part where I'm writing things for other people to potentially consume in some kind of way, right? Reading, listening to, whatever else, right? So, like, I've had this massive sense of self-sabotage to keep those moments away because it hurts. You know, and then I talked about my bear picture up there. And of course, when I won that contest, and then my parents sucked the life out of my moment within a half an hour of me finding out that I won the thing. So when I was doing Vocal Media, I wasn't really leaning into it and putting all of me out there. And it was a struggle. It was a big struggle. Writing anything. The thing that I absolutely loved and I wanted to share was also a thing that I was terrified of sharing because what if somebody tried to steal it? And it's like, you can't let that always be the thing that leads you and where you're going, because that's a sucky existence. You know, and like that picture, I thought it was a really good picture. It still wasn't one of my favorites, but when nobody had acknowledged it on Facebook, it's like, I took some really damn good pictures that day at the zoo, and nobody, like, said anything about them. Like, like, there was nothing. I don't think that one even had, like, any likes or anything on it, and it was just like, huh. So then when this opportunity came up for the zoo contest, you know, and they were looking for potential centerfold material, that was the prize, having my picture as the centerfold, which was that is the one that ended up being the centerfold. I had to cut some off the top and bottom to get it to fit in there, but worked out. But, you know, that was the biggest prize, and my thought was, maybe somebody else will get some enjoyment out of my pictures. That's the only reason I put it in there. If there would have been any kind of prize package on that, I would have talked myself out of it because I deemed myself unworthy. You know, and then I talked about that too. When I won, I found out there was a little bit of a prize package. It was 4 free tickets for, like, rides or passes to feed animals, whichever I wanted to do. And then we ended up not being able to go and use those because I told Gracie, hey, we have these. We got some free tickets. She loved the roller coaster there. So she was all about it, but then we never ended up making it back. So, yeah. Anyway, back to the posters. So, right, the universe provides, trust the process. So I'm going back into my other email address, and there's this promotions thing, because that's basically all I get there at this point. And of course, that was what the email address that was linked up to Vocal Media. So I started, so that's where all my stuff from them goes. So in the promotion, they had this thing with having the year membership for $49, which is half price for what it normally costs, or it's like $10 a month. I don't know if that went up or not. But anyway, the promotion piece of it was, the guy in the email said that they were doing their summer something or other, and they had like 12 different contests, and the contests were part of what brought me in the first time around, even though I didn't turn in anything that was worthwhile, because I would self-sabotage, right? Because I tried to, it was my means of proving to myself that I couldn't do anything worthwhile. So don't turn in something that could potentially be worthwhile, because then you risk destroying the whole fabric of your existence, right? Because you believe you're not worthy of doing something, and if you allow yourself to turn in something that you do tap into that flow state, and like turn in something that's like truest to you, the truest expression of what you want to put out there, or whatever. And it's okay, and that material loses the contest, then it feels shitty because, oh, I turned in something that I thought was really good, and then it's not. Or it wins, and then what does that say for me across the board otherwise? Because I didn't think I was even if I would have known that the prize package was 4 passes for rides or animal feedings, I still would not have put that in. Prize package, period, because I didn't see myself as somebody who was capable or worthy of winning, right? So then, hold on. Okay, my dog's messed up my train of thought again. Nobody's here. They just got excited. Right, but to think of it in hindsight, after I got those passes for the rides or animal feeding, then it was like, I wouldn't have put in for the contest, period, because I didn't deem myself worthy of winning anything. And it wouldn't have mattered what it was. If there was a prize that I knew was attached to it, I would have automatically discounted myself, because it's like, no, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy of winning. So that picture, I mean, that literally changes everything for me, right? So because of that, I'm more willing to actually give things a shot that I wouldn't have tried before, which that's kind of huge. There's been a couple little contests here lately that I've allowed myself to enter into, and it's like, the biggest thing is not being attached to whether anything happens or not. Like that, I figured maybe somebody else would get some enjoyment out of my picture. You know, and I mean, it's kind of a silly picture. Really, it's like all I was there was to do was take the picture, right? I had the camera and bam, there it is. You know, I think it was with my phone too, so it's like it wasn't even a complicated means of, like, it wasn't a good camera or anything. I mean, my phone has a pretty decent camera on it, but you know, not one that I would have thought, hey, this is winning, like contest winning material on. But after that, I pretty much just walked away from it. And honestly, like my tiger over here And my little elephant picture up there, which you can't really see the elephants from this angle, I don't think. But I don't want to get up. Yeah, whatever. I've shown it before. The biggest thing is my good light is in front of me, and if I go up here, then yeah, my get all shadowy. And I'm trying not to work myself to death on keeping my lighting okay. But anyway, yeah, it seems silly to think that I would have virtually said I'm not worthy of free animal or feeding passes or free ride passes at the zoo. But that is literally the essence of that, right? That worthiness wound thing. That's something I've been working on today too. Anyway, back to the email. I'm getting better at realizing I wandered off from the stories, and I think that's a big part of why I've had to spend so much time retelling stories and wandering off in different directions, because it's narrowing it down. It's, it's that whole spiral, right? The healing spiral. It's like, if you want to make sense of stuff, you got to clear things off, see them differently, and all that fun stuff. So that's been part of my process. But anyway, like, I've been putting in for other contests lately, but recently, because that bear proves that I can, just by taking a chance. Right? That's all it was. I was in the right place at the right time for that picture. And it was just my phone camera. But it said, it changed everything for me, because it was, before, I wasn't worthy of this thing. And now it's happened once, so what does it mean? If it happens once, it can surely happen again. So I put in for other contests for things that I actually might want. Nothing's come of them yet, but that doesn't mean it won't. But at least I'm taking chances where I wouldn't have before. So, yeah. And the vocal media thing, right? The universe provides, trust the process. And then I go to my email, and this email that I rarely ever check, because nobody ever sends me anything there. And I get this promo from Vocal Media, and it's talking about they have their challenges going on right now. The email I got was sent July 11th, I think. And so, like, part of them are already done. But there's still some going on through September. And I was just sitting there, and it's like, why not? And I was thinking, at the time I had $177 in the bank account, because I had gotten paid. That last Gracie paycheck was a substantial one, because I actually, I spent a lot more time with her that week. It would have been bigger, but they had a max amount of hours that I could work, and I had bypassed those, since some of it was making sure she got to her new house safely, that kind of stuff. But yeah, so since that is no longer an option, then this other thing pops up, and it's like, I feel like that is a nudge from the universe to do the thing again. I already have an account. I already have plenty of other things. Well, not plenty. I have a few other things that I've posted on there, and there's links in my freaking, I think, my bio on YouTube, my freaking Instagram, all that fun stuff. Like, there's links there where people can find things if they want to. But yeah, it just the way it came up, and because it was just one of those whims. It's like, I haven't checked this email in a while. I should check it. And then bam, there's this promo that's like from a month ago, but it's still going on. So why not? And of course, $49 when I have 177 to make it through the end of the month. you know, but it's a matter of taking chances, right? And following the little breadcrumbs, following the whims of the urges to do things. That's what leads to the bigger goal, right? You know, it's like I've had a lot of things over the years that I kind of get, you know, I've talked about the knowings. You know, I knew Tyler was going to die in our mid-30s. I knew I'd be 40 before I started making sense of things. And then that group of guys that was going to be really important to me. There's been other things that I've known. And maybe some of them haven't come to fruition yet, but I know they will. You know, that's something I was thinking about earlier too. It's like you don't get to be the kid that hides out, that goes in the bathroom at school and hides out because you don't want other people noticing your energy. So you hide, right? You don't go from that to, you know, this big leadership thing or whatever, this big teacher moment kind of thing. It's like you have to learn the lessons that get you to that point. It's not, I mean, especially going back to the whole YouTube thing, right? So I started the thing because of the twin flame thing, because he had to be in a spotlight for me to find him, but how would I ever find him? But how would he ever find me if I didn't start doing something more? So I started the YouTube thing. And that, oh my God, that was intense, right? And, you know, I've talked about the first 3 subscribers. I cried because what if I couldn't do it? You know, and now I'm at the point where, okay, I think the last time I made a comment about the subscriber thing, I was at like 120, and then I went back in the other day, and like one of them had fallen off, so it was like 119, and I laughed. Because what I feel of this now is, this has been my means of starting to put myself out there more for other people to find me, right? I mean, if you want to connect with your soul group, you have to be available for your soul group to find. And a big part of that for me has been talking through this stuff, right? So I talk about all the weird shit, and there too is kind of all over the place, because this is such an expansive thing. Like, this is my entire lifetime of stuff that I'm trying to make sense of. So for me to do a video and somebody is interested enough to hit subscribe, but then the next video, it doesn't hold their attention enough and they unsubscribe, it's like, now I can laugh at that. Right? It's not this soul-crushing thing. It's, there was probably something they saw that they liked and were interested in, and then the next one was not so much, so they thought it meant something else, so that, or they thought I was somehow not on the same track as they were. Okay, what's coming to mind now is how I've talked about being othered, right? And like all the spaces that there's a Sheltie out here that sounds like she is exploring, and I need to go check on that real quick, so hold on. Okay, so I'm going to traumatize the little dog for a second. This is Piper. So this is little foster homie. Ah, get out of the way. Okay, so Piper's the little foster. She's terrified of her own ass. She doesn't know how she fits in around here. And I heard her jingling. And she... Okay, first off, she's a herding dog, so they like to be with their packs anyway. Hi, Piper. Now she's in the doorway. She doesn't know if it's okay to come in here or not, because she's never been in here. Okay, she's got her front feet on the side of the threshold. She only feels safe on the couch in the family room and on my parents' bed, because those are the spaces that she's known she's okay being at, right? And there's also a dog bed in the living room, but I don't think she uses that one much anymore. But it's like she tries to stick with the safe spaces that she knows. So when she's jingling, it's like she didn't want to be by herself in another room anymore. And my parents aren't home, otherwise I wouldn't be doing the video here. So she didn't know where to go. Now she's hanging out on their bed, I think. But yeah. So. Oh, and she's not on the bed. She's hanging out in the doorway. Hi, you want to come here? Come here. She just looks at you like, I don't know if I'm allowed to do that. And I have to be the one to bring her in of a night. Like, they've been leaving the screen door propped open and the back door wide open, trying to let her come in on her own, but she can't make that kind of decision. Like, she's afraid to commit to it. So I usually end up, because I don't want all the bugs in the damn house, so I'll go out there and kind of chase her, or not chase her, but like I just walk in the direction that she's in or going, and she like will work her way back, and then she'll like bolt in the door, and since I'm behind her outside, she's not going to go back outside, you know, but she doesn't know with the other energies in the house if it's okay or whatever, so she's all over the place. I think she wants to be part of the pack, but she doesn't know how. She just better not poop on my office floor again, because she did that yesterday and that was not cool. Or the day before. Anyway, what was I talking about before the dog distracted me? Oh, being othered. So I feel like that's like one of those points of where that's kind of been important too, is like the sense of not fitting in with any specific group of people, right? Because we look for ways to label others so we can, you know, put them in some kind of class to determine if they're okay to hang out with or not, right? But where that gets complicated is nobody is exactly the same. We're not supposed to be. We're supposed to be building bridges and finding ways to unite with other people, so we can work toward the bigger goal, the unification piece, the awakening journey, ascension, that thing, all of that together. But we're all different, and that's part of the importance of the thing, right? So we're going to be othered by certain groups that we're in, right? So when I talked about like middle school, I had like different groups of people that I connected with, and the way I usually found myself explaining it was I hung out with whoever wasn't pissed at me at the moment. And now I'm seeing that as this point, right? So I say something and somebody finds some kind of resonance in it, and then I say something else and there's no resonance anymore, or they don't know that there's any resonance anymore, so they wander off, you know. But it's like, even that is like the back and forth. It's like, that's why I felt so isolated all along. Because I've been trying to navigate this whole journey and figure these things out and make sense of this information that I've been acquiring, the data I've been, you know, collecting over all these years. So now when I look at it with like the subscribers, it's initially that probably would have destroyed me. But now that I'm able to look at it, and, you know, I've had a couple people that I've talked about on here that have, you know, been those that have tried to come at me from a bullying perspective to like kind of knock me back down into my place, right? There are always those make me feel less, or started me in the direction of feeling less bad about the people that just like fall away. So it's like, I get it. But there's like so much to this whole thing that you're not supposed to be for everybody. So if somebody comes along and finds resonance in something that you say, but then, they find out that I have talked some shit about my parents on here and they don't approve of that, or religion or anything else and they don't approve of that, then it makes sense that they would wander off. And better to wander off than to become a dick and just try to pull anybody else down because you don't agree with them. Right? So, yeah. Anyway. This morning's thing. Because, see, this is all so relevant again. Twin flame thing. So I've talked a lot about knowing throughout my lifetime that there's like one specific person that I want to be with, right? That there is an exact match for me out there. And it would, I think the sheer fact that you want something activates that in the other aspect of you. So like in this connection, the counterparts connection, it's I want it, and so that's what I'm looking for, and I make it clear to the universe at any point along the way that this is what I'm looking for. It activates that the pieces for my energetic match to go through similar things to be moved in the same direction, right? Which means there's somebody else out there that's as complicated with all this like silly data collecting stuff as I am. Which I personally I think I will enjoy, thank you. Just because it's somebody else that exists in like this kind of, what the fuck did I do? Okay, I don't think I made it any better. Anyway, that's just gonna get it, right? That the good, the bad, all that fun stuff, he's just gonna get it because of the things that I've intended along the way, the things that I want. The sheer fact that you want something means that it exists in potential, right? So, so like when I decided when I was in high school that I did not want kids unless I was able to heal from all the stuff that, my parents were giving me to heal up through, right? If I was unable to heal through those things or from those things, I didn't want kids because I did not want to have to perpetuate that for another generation. Also, there have been times that I have thought, okay, the step parenting thing, I've done it, it was fine, but at the end of the day, for the one person that I feel like I've been looking for, I've wanted it, I've put it out there before that I didn't want them to have kids either. Because I don't want to deal with other people's stuff, right? And not, that sounds really bad when you're talking about other humans, but I want the connection to be able to exist without the things that a lot of people get hung up by or through. And I don't want other people's stuff into my thing. It's like I've had other people's stuff in my life all throughout my life. I've taken on other people's baggage and bullshit all along the way and tried to heal from it because I thought that that's what I was supposed to be doing. But in reality, it just meant it led to me being less of me because I was pouring myself out for everybody else and not being able to excuse me, going back to my Uncle Dave's funeral last year, right? Okay, so he was the first, like when I knew we were coming into a death season, he was the first one that came up. And at first, like, because he didn't die immediately, what happened was he, I think, was in a diabetic coma or something. My aunt had to call 911 and have the ambulance come out and take him to the hospital. He ended up in the hospital with the tube down his throat for the last week of his life and couldn't talk to anybody. He could hear everything. And, my mom got real, she was just always going back to the time she said something to him and it was just a single tear that went down his cheek and he couldn't say anything or whatever. I struggled because it felt like I was supposed to be able to do something. It's like I feel like I am supposed to be a healer in some kind of way, but I can't do anything about the situation. And what came to mind was just because you see it doesn't mean it's yours to fix. You cannot get in the way of somebody else's lessons, their soul lessons, what they came here to learn. You are not allowed to do that. And me being blocked from the healing aspect of what I was supposed to be doing was essentially because I was trying to pour myself out to make everything better for anybody else where I could at the expense of myself. And that is not helpful. I mean, nobody wins from that. Like, they don't like, okay, the stuff that I was doing for my parents, like when I would just get sick of the mess in the garage and randomly start getting rid of stuff, and then my mom would step up and start working on it too. She never initiated it. She would always do it as a response to I started it, then she would help with it. And we never wanted my dad in the middle of it because he, was just more trouble than it's worth and start throwing things around and having a temper tantrum. It's like, that's not helpful, go away. But what I've noticed is when I stopped going out of my way to help clean that situation, right? I think she's having to face the fact that, okay, like, she said a lot of things for a lot of years about my dad's side of the family and the mental health issues. My brother was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder in high school. And, he took after his dad's side. That's just how she saw it. That's, like she's somehow above it. But yet, when you look at what's happening, she's the one that keeps acquiring stuff. So now that her daddy's gone, she's having to face and I'm not trying to pick up the pieces anymore. She's having to look at the fact that the shit's still accumulating. She keeps getting more of it. What is it in her that is driving her to do that? It's my brother and I talked about that a bunch because he and his wife lived here very briefly when they first moved back from, I don't know if they ended in Oklahoma or I think they might have. Before, like when they came to Indiana, they spent some time with my parents. I was in Alabama, so I wasn't around for that time. But they were noticing that was something. It's like they would try to help, but then it hit a point where helping wasn't doing anything except for wasting your time because more stuff is still being accumulated and nothing's being done about it. Why? Where is that coming from? Where's the energy leak that's, just bringing all this other shit in? And oh, hey, the one who's been saying it was the other side, turns out it wasn't. But she wasn't able to reflect, right? That jingling up and down the hallway, sorry. It gets a little distracting. I think she had an itch there for a second because she all at once I heard like a little thwap, like she sat down and I don't know. Anyway. Okay, so that started from the being othered thing. Excuse my popping ankle. Yeah, so the twin flame thing. So it's like I've always felt like there's this exact match out there for me somewhere, right? And so what, like with the first guy I dated in high school, I struggled with that connection, 5555, because I knew he wasn't it. Yet I ended up being in that connection for 4 years because it was safer than being alone. That actually says a whole lot for the relationship end of things anyway. Because I knew he wasn't it, but he was safer. It was safer to be with him than to not have an ally in existence, because they were still my cousin that was talking shit about me to everybody. And, it's like that guy, the ex, was a safe space from that. That other stuff was still going to be there. Because I didn't feel like I could stand up for myself. I didn't feel like it was okay for me to use my voice. Because also, my family just accepted that what that asshole was saying was true rather than giving me a chance to say what had actually happened and find out that it wasn't what he was saying. So, because my ex was safer, that was a means of chipping away at me because I knew he wasn't who I was meant to be with. But for safety's sake, I stayed. I wasn't able to disconnect from that connection until he had somebody else. He had another relationship lined up because I couldn't stand the idea of putting somebody else in that kind of pain. And then too, because he had to have somebody else lined up for a relationship, that also chipped away at me further. Because rather than allowing him to have any sort of mourning for the connection and that it wasn't the thing, I think we probably would have been able to be friends had I not felt like I had no other choice but to stay there or not have anybody. Which, again, is kind of silly when, Tyler's one of my allies, and I've talked about him on here a lot. So, he was one of those that I don't know if he said anything to his other friends when I wasn't around or not. But I know, what I do know of him was there was a conversation me and that first boyfriend and him were having one night, and something came up with sex, and I said, we're not. And he said, I'd wondered about that. And when I first was revisiting that conversation, when I was writing letters to him all the time, I had the realization that this other asshole that was in the drumline with us, and was my cousin's best friend for a ridiculous amount of time, and he was very much just, just keeping that whole thing alive on that end, like the trying to crush me kind of a thing. That dude was the reason. When I was writing the letters to Tyler, I saw myself being like, if that conversation would have fully registered in that moment, I could have seen me going to where that guy that, you know, kept up that bullshit and was a big factor in people talking about me my entire life, or like from when I was 8 to, you know, my senior year in high school. You know, when I was writing the letters to Tyler after he died and was trying to make sense of things, I saw me having so much rage that, like, if I would have gone and, like, I could have seen myself decking that guy. And I even wrote about it. I said, honestly, I feel like there's so much anger here because of all this bullshit that if this would have come up back then, if I would have been able to make that connection, if I would have gone and decked that guy, I don't think I would have been able to stop. I think he would have gotten the full wrath, and, you know, there would have been some lives ruined because I would not have been able to stop beating him up. And there is no doubt in my mind that he wouldn't have been able to do anything. It's like just that full rage, he would not have been able to touch it. And it's like, okay, so then there's like the different ways that could have ruined lives. Both, you know, for his family and for me, but, you know, it's like there was that piece where it's like, at that point in time, I already thought he had ruined my life, but it wasn't that he fully ruined it. He tried like fuck to make it impossible for me to have anything else, to have anything better in my life. He tried to keep me down, but at the end of the day, it was because he felt like his life was shit too. And he didn't have anything worthwhile going on outside of that, so if he could at least torment me in that time and distract the attention from that, he probably, there's no doubt in my mind, people did not like that dude. So honestly, him putting it on me and just was just a means of distracting the people that would have been bullying him otherwise. You know, but for me, it's like that anger piece that I had to process through. It's like, I would have killed that dude. There's no doubt in my mind. If I would have ever decked him and started that, you know, because that's one of those things. It's like that was stuff that I hung onto that I had to heal from. Like all the layers of anger and grief that was all because this asshole was trying to deflect the attention from him. And so he tried to put the focus on me. Anyway, the thing I really wanted to talk about today it goes back to that the twin flame thing. I was thinking about that this morning. Back, hold on. Okay, dog's false alarm again. It's probably a neighbor delivery truck or something. But anyway, so this morning, one of the things that I was thinking about back in, I think, the spring last year, 2024, you know, early in the whole twin flame thing, still trying to make sense of things, I got this really strong feeling about one of the girls that he was connected to. And like, she was in a music video, and there's some other things. I just had this really strong sense that they had some kind of involvement, right? And I don't know what exactly it was, but there was something about her that really made me wonder if she was for him what Tyler was for me, right? So and this is another thing that I've been thinking too. In 2018, I was gathering the information to be solidified in getting the fuck up out of the situation in Alabama, like collecting data to confirm this stuff is the case and this is why I cannot stay in this connection any longer, right? So it was leading up to the final exit. But I remember I was leaning against the kitchen counter and it felt like I was having this conversation with somebody that wasn't actually there. And it was like, basically, okay, I don't even know if I'm going to convey this clearly, even though I've tried before, to, like, he was somehow, at some energetic level, asking for permission to marry somebody. And I remember thinking, no, absolutely not. This is hard enough with one of us having had this connection. Why do we need to complicate it with more? I don't want more people getting hurt through this whole thing while we try to figure ourselves out than we've already had happen, right? It's already, I just want no part of that. But it was like this whole conversation that it's like, it was one of those that's kind of like not at the forefront of my mind, but it was definitely there, and I remember it very clearly. And I can see myself standing in that kitchen. And it's like, as I've cleared out some of the excess junk, it's been brought into clarity even further. But it's like, I definitely remember that. That was like 2018. So then I was like, was she this person, right? Was she his, I mean, is he even calling her his version, or saying, was she to him what Tyler was to me? That's not really, I don't think that's really an adequate question either. Yes and no. Because, for me and the connection, the twin flame, it's like that's the exact match, two sides to the same coin, right? So Tyler, I think, had a lot of the qualities that I anticipate this person has because I've wanted them, right? Because, the grand scheme of potentials for the things that I've encountered that I want in I want this person to have. Yeah, there's a reason that I came across them, and it was, I think, essentially, you come across them in other people so you can help your other aspect kind of narrow things down for themselves and figure out who they are. And shining light on one side helps the other step into that. And that sounds really complicated. It's always complicated. And there's always, I can't tell you how many times I've seen his birth date on this one either. That one is a common thing. Anyway, so this girl, I set that, I've written about her in my journals a lot, the twin flame journals and all that stuff. Today I had to revisit it because what I was thinking when I started, it was thinking about, okay, like in June last year, I did a video where I talked about, I feel like one of the things I'm supposed to be doing is just getting out and being seen, like by as many people as possible, whatever reason. And it's like, that sounds like really shallow, but it's like, I know there's a bigger purpose to it. I think part of that is the more I step into like the colors and all the combinations of things that I do, that's a means of the feminine aspect stepping into I mean, essentially her divinity, because she's realizing the fullness of who she is, able to express herself in various ways, whatever the expression I am here to be of that is meant to be seen, which has always been a big part of why I've been in hiding too, is because, you know, I've had attention on me when I didn't necessarily know who I was, and it made me uncomfortable, which is a big piece of that. But the more that the feminine realizes of herself that she wants to do, the way she wants to express through the created things, the people, that's a big part of the process, right? And I say that thinking of like all the different women out there that I've seen recently that are like starting to really come into themselves in their own way of being, right? So I was thinking this connection with the feminine, you know, as, okay, there again, two sides to the same coin thing, right? Okay, so the idea that women are essentially meant to be seen, because we are, is also the thing where the patriarchy, the system, the distortion, has tried to lock it into looking at the distorted feminine and taking from her whatever it wants. So where the feminine hasn't been free to be the full expression of who she is in her divinity, because the distorted masculine, you know, it wants to look, wants to take. And has made it where it wasn't okay for us to be the full expression, right? So I've talked about how, like, okay, I don't know where the green is anymore. The dating website, right? Where I encountered the guy that said, if you have or have ever had green hair, do not even bother talking to me because I'm looking for somebody I can take to church. And for me, it was, oh, it's the green that means I can't go to church or whatever, right? Even though I went to seminary, I have my master's in divinity degree. I spent a lot of time in church for a lot of years. It's like, oh, it's the green hair that means I shouldn't be there. So, I started calling it douche deterrent, but I mean, really, the colorful hair at all works that same way, because the people that you can have your preference to not do the colorful things. That's not a problem. But when you try to enforce that on everybody because you're not okay with it, then it's a problem. So, like for that guy, I started calling it douche deterrent, and there for a while, every time I did my hair, there would be green in it somewhere. And I think there was green in this somewhere, but I'm not sure where it's at. Actually, I know there was green in it somewhere, but I just don't know where it's at anymore because it's kind of faded at this point, and all over the place. So here, I'm trying to grow out some of what looked to be bangs because my hair broke from all the processing before. So I'm trying to fix that. So it's like, oh, what is happening? It's like, oh, that's what's happening. I'm pinning some of it back. So anyway, right. So I started calling douche deterrent and started doing it all the time. Right. But I mean, that was just the green. But honestly, it's not just the green, it's the colors in general, because there are a lot of people, like the lady at the library who said, oh, well, my husband wouldn't like that at all. She said the way she started the conversation was that something about she doesn't normally go for the bright colors in the hair, but since, she doesn't know me any other way, kind of a thing. And since I was doing it when I was really little, it's like I wasn't doing this when I was really little. It's like, I don't really know who she is. I mean, I think she went to school with my aunt, and I've talked to her because of that, but I think she started to insert me into this other, I think honestly what I think it is now that I am willing to do the colorful things, she's thinking of other people that have been able to do that earlier on, because this is something, it's not just, all the people that do this kind of stuff. There's a whole bunch that try to keep us from being able to do this kind of stuff, because the toxic masculine, the distorted masculine, knows that when the feminine starts stepping into the full expression of who she is, he don't stand a chance. He got to step up and step into, or he's got to do the work to become something worthy of the attention. So what he made it before, he is, if it's just one, but it's it's the whole network of all of us. So the feminine is meant to be seen, because as she steps into the fullness of who she is, it shows where, okay, there's been a lot of dudes, the ones that the self-proclaimed alpha males, and, their women will act this way and not this way, blah, 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 and this is the only way that's acceptable. Those types, the toxic ones. They don't want to have to do the work, so they just get mouthier and make everybody else feel like shit to try to block any of us from becoming more who we are and who we are here to be. Now, remembering we all have both the masculine and feminine aspects within us, and going back to that twin flame thing, that, and as above, so below, okay, the yin yang, it's like realizing that, like, okay, the yin is the feminine principle, the darkness, but there is light in the darkness, there is dark in the light, right? So it's the crisscross thing, right? So basically, if I'm this dark piece, he still carries a piece of me. And if he's this light piece, I still carry a piece of him. And Gid just looking at me like, what are you doing? Because I started pointing up there. Sorry. Right, so this is the twin flame piece. It's like we carry each other within, right? We always have. That's how we always are communicating at this energetic level. The yeses and the nos, and the setting intentions for what we want, and that's kind of the means of bumping us along on the path, right? So we can come into the full awareness of who we are and who we want to be, because we're the same soul frequency, right? So there's the Sheltie came in and then she came out. Right, so when you know what you don't want, then you know what you do want, right? Because this the other stuff doesn't want, or you don't want this, so then it means you do want certain other things, right? So this connection means that this kind of a thing that's happening, right? Oh, the girl. What I was thinking of today, because of the expression of the feminine, she's somebody, I follow her on social media. She reminds me a lot of me. Obviously she would, if that is in fact this connection for him. And what I was thinking in terms of the connection was, she, okay, this is me and him, right? So if this is me and him, then she, for him, would basically be the off-brand, right? Because she's not me, right? So I've thought of it before. It's like, thinking of her as the off-brand version of me for him. It's like, okay. Trying not to sound like like a complete asshole, and that's hard to do when you're talking, like, trying to make it make sense, because there's so many ins and outs to the thing. When I was thinking about that earlier, I got that sick feeling again. It's like, kind of enhancing the worthiness wound piece. And what I realized was, if she, to him, is the off-brand version of me, he doesn't get to be on brand for everybody. Right? So if she is off-brand for him, he's also off-brand for her. But part of the conditioning, part of the distortion of the system is, we want this to be real, but then there's a lot of us out there that don't believe it's real. And that was the biggest thing. I've talked many times about how, if I would have been confident in this connection, this twin flame piece, if I had enough of the information earlier on, I wouldn't have been in most of the situations I ended up in. Right? And as far as having any kind of other relationship where sex was even a thing, like, that would not have been a possibility, because I valued myself more and I knew I was waiting for that, right, for my exact match. And I would have known, if I would have known that he did in fact exist, I would have been holding out the entire time. Which is also the point of the distortion, the matrix, the system. It's all one and the same, right? So if you are locked into the distortion, then you don't think that's a possibility. You don't think that, eventually the divine whole of our soul frequency, that's not for everybody else. But it is for us, right? But we have to believe in it so completely that nothing else can touch us, right? So, I've talked about the friend that I had for a time where basically, okay, the mistake I made was needing somebody outside of myself to help me remember who I was. Because then what it became was, he was always saying the nice things that I would want my partner to actually say, right? And then when somewhere along the line, he starts saying the things that I would want from, that he's put it in on the connection, or our connection. Okay, he knew that I had a twin flame. He knew that I was very set on the specific person, the specific connection, because there's so much synchronicities and stuff that I feel pretty damn confident this person is meant to be in my life at some capacity, and will be in the near future. I haven't always believed that. When I met the friend, I believed it, but the friend, the purpose he served, basically was, I was opening up enough to him that he wanted to be that. He wanted that kind of connection with someone, and because I was there, he was trying to look at it with me. And it's like, no, you're married. That's the problem. It's like, even before the piece of him being married, which should have always been the thing, it was, but I've told you about this other thing. This guy, that I have talked about this guy, and all the reasons I've given you for why I believe this is my person. And now you're trying to put yourself where he's supposed to be. Which is a big piece of the distortion, right? The distortion keeps you locked in that way because you start chipping away at the match connection. And I've talked about, like, this thing I got that one in particular because I've seen it where the black is the defining line. I've seen it where the white is the defining line. And also, obviously, whichever side, if the white is the boundary, like as it is in here, then you don't see the boundary over here. Right? And I think that's why I got that statue. Hold on. Let me get the statue. Okay. So my statue. I got this from Inner Path because it reminds me of this thing, right? So I've talked about how with here, when I was able to see the boundary, then I was able to feel like the masculine aspect of myself, which is my counterpart, my twin flame, has been there as a means of being the boundary. So then I saw this thing, and, of course, the dude's the angel here. I think it's called Guardian Angel. I don't have the sticker on it anymore. It's called Guardian Angel. But it really felt like it needed to come home with me because, okay, so he's the angel, and she's, he's kind of got an arm around her and got the wings as a protection. That feels like that. Like, once I started tuning into the masculine aspect, it's like strengthening the boundaries. So, like the friend that wanted to suddenly put himself in that space, it's like, that's not you. That's not you. There is somebody, yes, that is meant for me in my lifetime and has been the whole reason that I have done this healing work, for which Tyler was a catalyst in helping me get started on being able to set some of the baggage down that I've been carrying all my life. So he was hugely important, but he still wasn't that for me, wasn't what I was ultimately looking for, which, I've talked about many times that I know who this guy is and, given information that one day will be relevant on that point. But the biggest thing was encountering his energy was what made all the rest of this possible. Like even the vocal media stuff. I encountered the Twin Flames energy in 2021. It was May 2021 that I did the vocal media stuff. And I know that stuff because in February 2021, I signed up to do the 21-day Write Your Book challenge, or whatever, however it was worded. And that was the thing I was doing when I came in contact with this guy's energy. Because the live stream he did, it was the second one that he did that I went into, I was distracting myself from writing for the contest because it was on this, I was focusing on the suicidal aspect and I was focusing on the heavy, dense side of it. And whenever I did that, I had a really hard time pulling myself back out of that. Then I end up into this live stream and the guy starts, he's doing the live stream and then all at once he says something about ending the live stream to go do something else or focus on what he was doing, whatever. And I made a comment and he responded. And it was like, I was the little mouse running through the kitchen and somebody turned the light on. Right? So then it was like, oh shit. But then it started all this other stuff because that would have been in March because I think I derailed on the contest in March because I kept going negative and couldn't bring myself back out of it. But in May, I signed up to do vocal media, which was trying to start putting myself out there. It was a means of trying to start sharing things I was doing, right? And then yeah. So the reason my whole journey has been so complicated goes back to, when I got really into those books, When God Writes Your Love Story, When God Writes Your Life Story, when I was an undergrad. Those, of course, that was a Christian couple, Eric and Leslie Ludy, that wrote both of those books. And I remember really liking that idea, and the idea that God could shape this amazingly beautiful love story. And what would that look like? What would that be like? If you want to find that out, well, you got to know everything it's not before you can find your way into what it is supposed to be. Which, there again, goes back to that piece where I've been collecting data my entire life for this story. Because like even with these Twin Flame books, I will put things in them, like the concert tickets that I bought, that he was on tour with that band, and that was why I found out about him. Stop. Take a break. Did you just steal her bone? You asshole. Got the big bones, and then he got the little bone, and he stole the little bone from the little Sheltie. He's trying to find her way just because he can throw his weight around. We're going to have to work on that. Which, there too. No, take a break. Which, that goes to that piece of distortion. People in the distortion finding ways to lock others into the distortion because they don't want to see you do better than them, because they don't want to believe that they are capable of doing more. So if they can bring you down to their level, they don't have to step up. I've talked about it with the masculine on here, and if the feminine starts stepping into her divinity, then to be worthwhile. I don't think I finished that point. Okay, so the self-proclaimed alpha males, which are anything but alpha. You have to proclaim it. You've already given your power away on it because you can't prove it. You just have to say it, and you say it so much you think that makes it valid, but it doesn't. But anyway, there's a lot of people, a lot of guys that want to complain that there are no women available that are willing to shrink themselves to allow their bullshit behavior to be okay. It's like, so people would rather be alone than with assholes. Go figure. But, to step out of the distortion, to find who you really are, to step into your wholeness before you have any kind of connection. That is where you can find the actual connections you want to have. The counterpart. The exact match. And then thinking about that, like with the I mean, it was like a really hard thing for me to fathom him, my counterpart, being off-brand, but because he's not off-brand for me. He's my exact match, right? But for this other girl, like when I was thinking about her being off-brand for him, because she's an off-brand version of me, right? So she has a lot of characteristics like me, but she's not me. And I felt bad when I was thinking about that this morning with her, until I flipped it and was like, but he is off-brand for what she actually wants to. He might have some of the characteristics that, are ultimately helping her to narrow down what she does want, because, like, that's a big part of this whole thing, right? And thus, me wanting to share this love story that's been divinely written for me and through me, there's a lot of evidence along the way. Like the concert tickets, right? Going back to the concert tickets. That, okay, every one of these Twin Flame, well, not every single one of them. Every time I have something that I remember, and then it's like, I should hang on to that, it goes in there. So the concert tickets for the concert that I got, I was going to go to Cincinnati to see one of my favorite bands. And that was how I found out about the band he's in, or one of the bands he's in. And, got introduced to their music that way, and started, she just keeps cocking her head. She's like, she knows it's about that time. No, take a break. But the concert, you know, it was going to be in May 2020, and then it got pushed back to November 2020, and then it got canceled. So I think it got canceled in like September or something, and then I got the refund, I don't know, sometime after that. But I still had the tickets that were sent to me from when I was going to go to this concert. So it's like, that is a huge relevant piece of this divine love story puzzle that's being written through me. And so it went, and I was like, I feel like I have to keep this with this, right? So like my picture, that'll be one of them that is used because it supports the story that I've been telling, right? So it's like the YouTube version is the real complicated part of the path, and it's me unraveling some of the things that I've believed to try to make sense of who I am and where I'm going. But you know, like, people don't want to just sit there and watch all the confusion of that all the time. They're going to want the actual story where it's succinct and it makes sense. And then this is just the foundation building, right? This is, you know, all the things that I've talked about him, about knowing it was him, like with, you know, all of me knowing it's him. You know, that's been critical because, okay, because I have to know myself. I have to know who he is to me. Once I know who he is to me, it started giving me a means of having more of a framework, right? So the masculine aspect is the framework, the feminine is the flow, right? So the feminine flows through the masculine. They go together. But that is not to say that is reliant on what parts somebody has physically. That's nobody else's business. You know, whatever you are drawn to, there is a reason you are drawn to that. It is, you have to unify the two aspects of yourself. And for me, it was, finding out that this person actually existed, that made space for me to start finding myself and who I am at my core, right? And the more I step into knowing who I am, you know, because, you know, I get to be this big dark spot, but I also get to be the little dark spot that he carries with him. Heart, as above, so below. You know, the work that I do, he's also affected by, right? And then he gets to do his own work, and then that also affects me, right? So it's kind of a back and forth in that way. But the dog is right. This is long. And yeah, I think I've covered a lot of ground here today, and more than I thought I was going to, but yeah, you know, it is what it is. Stop, we're not there yet. See, now she's just predicting it, and she's predicting it all wrong. It's close, but it's all wrong. So, as always, I appreciate you. Until the next time.